What made this year so special? It's more than just 61 wins. Radio play-by-play man Sean Grande gives us his big takeaway from this season right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Yup. Beantown, be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Back to back, if I say it, it's stamped. Locked on number 19, the best one, the next one. Juice loose in your pool now for the next run. It's the C's, who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT, Karalis, recap the madness. Every game, every practice. Best daily pod, no cap like Brad Beckett. Clutch like Drew to KP, tap in daily. Prime time, dapping D White on the sideline. Raining Jayson, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. I got you covered every Monday through Friday, plus bonus podcasts on weekends when appropriate, when they play. It's the playoffs. We're getting ready for a big monster run of podcasts, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comment section there and share your thoughts with me, John Karalis. I have been covering the Boston Celtics for about 20 years now, doing it as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've also written a couple of books on the Celtics, so I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on what this team is. Today's show is a big look back with Sean Grande, Celtics radio play-by-play man. Tomorrow's show is going to be post-Orlando and Atlanta, so we're going to watch that game. Tom Westerholm and I will be here after that game. Immediate reaction, immediate breakdown of the Celtics first-round matchup. That'll be determined on Tuesday night. That's going to be the next show. Sean and I talked for a while. So what you're going to get in this podcast is an edited version down to about 30 minutes or so. I will post on YouTube the full unedited bonus, just an hour-long conversation between me and Sean. So that will be a separate YouTube exclusive. If you want to listen to that, if you want that's only going to be on YouTube. So go check that out. It will be there after I post this. It'll be its own separate thing. I'll post it at some time on Tuesday. The bonus full unedited conversation. But we talked for so much, I could only pick out the best of it for this particular podcast. So here's my conversation. The good parts, they're all good. But here's just part of my conversation with Sean Grande. Let's you and I focus in on this season, because the reason why I wanted you on this particular show is no one is more in tune to what this season was than you. Like you have everything down to like the most granular level. Like you have stats that I didn't even know existed sometimes.
How do you know I'm not making them up?
I just trust you. I don't know why I do. I don't know. It might be my biggest mistake, but
I should once in a while put stuff in there just to see if anybody's paying attention. Like this is this is the most threes anyone's ever hit on a Thursday, just to see if anyone's
okay. Here's that right there is why I know you're not making it up, because you are too focused on the stat. Like you're not even. I don't even know if you have the wherewithal to actually come up with a believable fake stat. Which is a challenge. This is a challenge for you now.
You know what's really funny about it? I do, when I'm listening to you and I hear you talk now, I realize now I use social media as a supplement to the broadcast. It gets me in trouble sometimes because people want to argue about everything. So you'll put up a stat that says, hey, Marcus Smart just passed Larry Bird on the all-time, whatever, on the three-point list. How can you say Marcus Smart's a better shooter than Larry? Didn't actually say that. But my general message is, I appreciate everybody. And this is the problem that the social media following, especially when things start bouncing around, becomes much larger than my audience. So it is a supplement to the broadcast. If you don't have time or the inclination, and you're at the games, you're not listening to the broadcast, 99% of the time. A lot of people aren't. But my feeling often is like, well, get the notes from a classmate then, because this is supplementing stuff I'm doing on the air. And what I use social media for is to share. I'm prepping for the next game. That's just sort of a fancy way to make it look, because I'm putting that in my book for the next game, for the next pregame show. When we recap the last game, I'm going to say some of those things that happened in the last game. And it sort of helps me obviously document it as it's going along. But everything, it's almost more of an insight to like let Dick Lipe do what Dick Lipe does. Mine is more of an insight into the play-by-play voice of a team and how I catalog stuff throughout the course of the year. I do 20, 30, 45 minutes, depending on the game, after every game to update my stuff. That is just prepping for the next game that I'm doing. And then I share it because people seem to like it or it's relevant. And I've always been a fan of TV graphics. And what occurred to me right away, as long as I decided to stay radio, which is a word I'm trying to get myself not to say, because that's a word like Betamax that's going to drop from the lexicon too. But as long as I stayed on the non-picture side, on the Celtics broadcast network side, that we don't have graphics. So those supplement the game. And then the third and final part of that, people say to me, how do you do all that? How do you do that during games and whatever? The answer to that is we had video games when we were kids. Remember when you got really, really good at a video game? So you'd start doing things to make it harder for yourself.
Yeah.
That's how I do the stuff. Like during the game, sometimes a job you've had for 20 something years isn't always the most challenging job. So if I can make it more, if I can juggle some plates while I'm doing it at the same time, while I'm calling a game from the corner where you can't actually see the court, let me see if I can do that and update the thing. And it's fun for me if I can call the game and then tweet something before Jay King does it when he's just sitting there doing nothing, then that's a win for me. Like sometimes I remember him once saying, "Hey, I did that thing 8 seconds before you." I'm like, "Yeah, and were you calling the game at the same time?" Like, come on, there's levels to this. So it's become right. It's just it's a fun game, but it's interesting to me because perception. You have to be aware of how people perceive you, and I realize people. Oh yeah, Grandy's got all those great stats. And I'm like, yeah, because they're part of prepping for the broadcast. But then you realize again, size of the broadcast audience, size of the, once that stuff starts pinballing around out there, and some of that early stuff I did, like when Kevin Garnett got to 25,000 points, all of a sudden you realize when that thing hits the Twitterverse, especially back in the day, it was just, it was flying all around the world.
This is like a song that has been written for a reason, and then it becomes popular and people play it for a different reason. It's not your song anymore. It's like Born in the USA. It's like, that's not what that song is about.
Not an uplifting, happy song.
Yeah, it's not. But man, it's played at all these political rallies, and that no one cares. Like whatever your intent was, doesn't matter. It's here now, and once it's out there, and the people have put their hands on it, it's whatever they make of it. That's what this sounds like. Today's show is brought to you by Hungry Root. Spring is here, and life is busier than ever. Between work, family, and everything in between, who has time for grocery shopping and meal prep? That's why you have to use Hungry Root. It makes eating healthy, delicious meals simple and stress-free. Hungry Root is like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist all wrapped into one. They take care of the grocery shopping and meal planning, offering personalized recommendations based on your tastes and health goals. Hungry Root tailors your orders based on what you like or don't like. It gets smarter every single time. It learns. With their high-quality, nutritious food, you can stick to your gut-friendly, high-protein diet without spending hours planning. The meals come together in 15 minutes or less, giving you time for workouts, family, hobbies, podcasting. Take advantage of this exclusive deal. Get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. Code LockedOnNBA for 40% off and a lifetime free item. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out our new Locked On Celtics newsletter. We're ready for the playoffs, and Locked On Celtics has you covered. If you subscribe to the Locked On Celtics podcast newsletter, you get expert analysis, insider insights, and all the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free. Plus, as a subscriber, you'll be entered to win one of these 3 amazing prizes: a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your sports cave setup, a $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. It's easy and free to enter. Simply subscribe between April 7th. Well, that's already passed. So you got up until April 30th to be automatically entered to win. Don't miss out on every moment here in this championship run. Join the Locked On Celtics newsletter today and experience the playoffs like never before. Subscribe today and enter to win by clicking on the link in the description. Now let's get back to the conversation with Sean Grande.
You want a stat? Because I'm the stat guy. Here's the best stat I've had in 27 years in the NBA, my all-time favorite, and nothing will ever top it. So you remember the year that Chris Humphries was dating Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
He was on the cover of People magazine, Us Weekly. He was the guy. He was in the center of every single thing that happened. And then she dumped him, right? Yep. She literally breaks it. She breaks it off with him, and he's the guy. He has to go through this. That year, he led the league. He had his shot blocked more than any other player in the NBA that coming season. So after the year he just went through, with the entire world watching Kim Kardashian breaking up with him, he literally led the league in getting rejected. Nothing will ever that is the best stat. If I'm the stat guy, take that. That's the best stat of all of that 26 years.
That's amazing.
And then later became a Celtic. I'm pretty convinced that's why she became I think I had her at that. I had her at that moment. I had her at Kim Kardashian.
I mean, how do you even find that? So how do you even figure that out?
Well, I remember just stumbling. You blocked attempts was a thing back before we got into offensive rating and advanced metrics and all the craziness you can do now. And you can go down some serious rabbit holes now. But getting your shot blocked was a blocked attempts. I think that's still a thing you can still find. Nobody who gets their shot blocked anymore because they're all threes. So all those stats have gone away. It's like when you talk about the historic year that the Celtics had in Cleveland and OKC, everyone's like, well, there's more points being. Yes, I know there's more points being scored. We talk about it on the broadcast quite a bit, but there's never been three teams that have had a year like this at the same time. And that's what makes it historic. And by the way, OKC didn't squeeze by this. There's just 2,000 teams in the history of the league, and they're now number one by a wide margin. Yeah, the game has changed. Yes, there are more points being scored, but come on. This is one of the most dominant teams we've ever seen. You got to appreciate it. Everybody wants to downplay what's happening in real time and romanticize about what was, right? Like the new Big Three era, man. I did every single game with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, Rajon Rondo. Go watch those games now when they're Rondo's bouncing the ball for 20 seconds. And tell me it's not a better game now. It is.
So much of that is about expectations.
Sure.
No one expected the OKC Thunder to win 68 games. So it's something's off.
And no one thinks they're going to win the same way. One of the few times I've definitely been right over the years was in 2015. I kept telling Max all year the Golden State was going to win. And he was like, no, teams like that don't win. I'm like, you're saying that because teams like that haven't won yet. And by the way, Golden State was the number one defensive team in the league that year in 2015. And I think it's hard, but no one wants to pick OKC right now because they haven't won yet. Same way people weren't comfortable about the Celtics a year ago. When I kept saying over and over, there's a quote of mine that got pulled, obviously, that I said like in late February or March, like, what if it's not going to be hard? You had 2 years of winning 8 elimination games. The Celtics won 8 elimination games in 2022 and 2023, which is insane. And I remember saying at the end of February, late March, what if it's not going to be like that? What if they walk back? What if there are no game 6s or game 7? And that's what happened because the Celtics were historically good and nobody else was close. The only reason to be skeptical about OKC and Cleveland this year, or the only reason to be skeptical about OKC is because the other two teams exist.
Yeah.
The reason to be skeptical about Cleveland is because Boston's in the East. The reason to be skeptical about Boston is that two teams had better years than they did, which is, all the stats you ran the other night. That's the only problem with this Celtics season, which compares favorably to most teams that have won the championship, is the fact that you have OKC this year, Cleveland this year, and last year's Celtics who all had better years. And so it's like it's the fourth musketeer of those 4 seasons. But it was, as you like to say, it was pretty damn good.
It was a pretty damn good season. So let's get into this season, because it was a 61-win season where they were the second best offense in the league overall, the 4th best defense in the league, and the second best net rating in the league by the end. Is an incredible season. Now, OKC is 3.3 points better in net rating. They're the number 1 defense and the number 3 offense by a tick. But by any measure, this Celtics team is a hell of a team, and a team that I think, because of what happened in December and January, people kind of like, I don't know. And because OKC and Cleveland exist, there's like that, like you just mentioned, like, I don't know. But take all that aside, just throw that away for a moment. What the Celtics did this year after what they did last year is pretty incredible, I think.
With Porzingis missing half the year, Jaylen, who knows his situation right now, and obviously he missed 20 games. Jayson Tatum, as my son would say, low key, missed 10 games this year, and there were a lot of nights. And the Tatum Giannis thing is interesting, because even I have had to concede. I was a strong when everybody was just seeding Giannis the 3rd spot, and what would be in the MVP voting, and what would be the de facto. We don't have it in the NBA like we have it in the NFL and in Major League Baseball. If each conference had an MVP, it would have been a fascinating debate all year with Tatum and Giannis. I felt Tatum a month ago was clear-cut Eastern Conference MVP and was clear-cut 3rd guy, because Giannis was missing a bunch of games. But, man, that dude, he came down the stretch like a thoroughbred, and I think there's no circumstance by which Giannis doesn't get the 3rd spot. But the Celtics did all that with with everybody getting up for him with the target on their back. Or what is the quote that Joe's going to, I think, live with it? The laser beam on the
red dot on my forehead.
The red dot. And that was real, by the way. That's what happens when Golden State, for all the years that they were the team. Like a lot of these teams, you make their season, not at the end when everybody's playing capture the flag and this calamity of the last couple of months, which the NBA's got. It's easy to say, oh, they got to fix it. And we do as a league. We do have to fix it. It's a lot easier said than done, but this was it's gotten much worse, not just with the draft picks being, protected. The protected picks, that's really making a mess of this last season where it's just, I talked to too many people, and here's part of the job you don't see. How many Celtic fans did I talk to in Orlando who bought tickets and no knock on Baylor Shireman or Torrey Craig, who had that amazing game the other day. But that's not why parents bought tickets for their kids for the Boston visit to Orlando.
Yeah,
late in the year, and it's unfortunate. We had a trip. So I've been here as long as we've just discussed. I'm now old, and I've been here a really long time. And this last road trip, I'll tell you this: I signed more autographs and took more selfies in Utah and Portland in those games than in any individual games I've done, home or away, for this team in 20-something years. That is how insane that road trip. There should be a 30 for 30 about that road trip. Where every night we get there, there'd be 5,000 Celtic fans who were in there when the gates opened, just to see warm-ups. They come over and to see Max and see, obviously Scal. Scal's the Pied Piper when he walks through these buildings. I'll tell you about what I thought was going to be a near-death experience going to see Scal play that game in the playground on 4th Street a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I grew up. I grew up 2 blocks from there, so I was not going to miss it. I knew what was coming. I went. My father took me to the 4th Street playground when I was a kid to watch the real players in New York play, because it wasn't the Rucker, but it was basically the number 2, cage in the city. And as that was going on, I was inching. I was inside the cage. I was inching towards the door, in case I had to get out, quick, because we were closing in on a riot. But the fans pack the place, make noise during the game. They get shouted down by the home team. And then the Celtics would chase the home team fans away, win the game going away, And by the end of like every one of these games, it was just Celtic fans left in the building cheering on another Boston win. So again, part of my job is to wave the flag and say, look at what's happening now. Be in the now. Don't say, oh, Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. Like when Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce were here, I was saying, don't say Larry Bird and Kevin McHale. Watch every episode of Celtic City and do it knowing that you're in it now. It's happening again. This is it. And by the way, I don't know, was it you was talking about the new Big Three team and making a compare? This group has been better. This group has been the new Big Three era, which obviously is one of the first ones that I really documented extensively because I did all of those games. That was a year and that was 130 games until Garnett got hurt, where they were as good as anybody had ever been. Then there was the second phase from the Garnett injury to the Perk trade.
Mm-hmm.
They were good. And then there was the last year and a half, which they were a 500 team. They were more of a basketball museum than a real contender. It was like, hey, come see Ray Allen in his natural state. You know, that's what it was towards the end. And as I said, I think I'd probably say that maybe in the future episode of Celtic City, the clock on the new Big Three era started ticking the day it started because all those guys were 30.
Yeah.
30, 31, and 32. Think about that with Jaylen and Jayson right now. That they were, and even Porzingis, they were 30, 31, and 32 when that started at a time that guys weren't playing as long 15 years ago. But this has exceeded it.
Today's show is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. When's the last time you had a service emergency? If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications, all through an app on your phone or your computer. I love that you don't need to carry two phones. With Open Phone, I can manage business calls and texts from one app, whether I'm at my desk or on the go. My favorite feature is the shared inbox. Your team can jump into any conversation without missing a beat. The AI call transcripts and summaries save you time on follow-ups and ensures you never lose track of customer interaction. OpenPhone is offering you 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you're switching from another service, OpenPhone will even port your existing numbers over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA and Locked On NBA Game Night. Every night there is coverage for every game in the playoffs. So go check it out. Locked On NBA plus Locked On NBA midday has a debate show style show. So if you subscribe to the Locked On NBA feed, you get both of these shows directly to your favorite podcasting app. Find it wherever you get this podcast. Now let's finish off this conversation with Sean Grande. What the Celtics are doing, what these guys have done has been, when you look at it, so many deep playoff runs. They've only missed the playoffs once in what? How many years? 10, 12, 50, whatever it is?
More than, yeah, going back to 07, they only missed in 14 in Brad's first year. So,
right. Okay.
Where are we? 17, 2007, 17 out of 18 or 16 out of 17.
Something like that's crazy.
It is.
And only one first round exit since then. Is that right?
15, they went out. They got swept in the first round of 15. 16, they got screwed by the electoral math of the tiebreaker, and they had to play Al Horford in Atlanta in the first round, which they shouldn't have had to, and they lost there. And then there was the 21,
okay,
the 21 series, which I referenced it last year if they won a championship. When you talk about Brad Stevens' last game, we didn't know at the time, but it was going to be the last game he coached. Romeo Langford, Tristan Thompson, somebody else started in that game. Yeah. That's where the Celtics were 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the next year, go to the
finals. That was the one. That was the only one in the Tatum era. That was only the first. That was the only first round exit in the Tatum era.
Because Kemba got hurt. We saw Kemba over the weekend. Kemba never got to play. Kemba Walker dreamed of being a Celtic his whole life. Never got to play in a home playoff game in front of fans.
That's right, because that was a COVID
He
year.
was hurt. Second year he was hurt, and the first year was the bubble.
That's a shame. But this Celtics team has been incredible. And I just, you bring up 08 and that team, because, well, first of all, the prior year was so bad that this was like Kevin Garnett was the savior, and Ray Allen, like that was, they had assembled a team that was supposed to be good, and it's a bunch of new guys. It's like, okay, here we go. Boom, we're making our run, and everybody buys in right away. They have long histories, and there's it didn't matter that they didn't get the job done then prior to getting here. Getting to Boston, being put together, this was a whole new thing. Boston's back, baby, and everybody bought into it. They're supposed to be good. They were. They won a championship. Awesome. Tatum, Brown had great runs that Charlotte would love. They would sign up for that run right now, that kind of playoff success. But because they had that playoff success without winning a championship, you had the questions about Tatum. There was always skepticism. Last year when they got Porzingis and Holiday, it was always, okay, that's great, but, and all the local radio folks and all the talking heads were, yeah, but Tatum can't get the job done, and Jaylen can't get the job done. This isn't and you throw in the Joe Mazzulla, the Miami series and all of that stuff, and nothing but skepticism, it felt like. And the win was like, okay, yeah, all right, okay, they are good, actually. And now this year, I think people are starting to get into the, okay, yeah, this is, we're kind of like, it's learning to ride a bike again, and it's still shaky. We're riding it, but there's still not that 08 feeling of like, this is a dominant team. This is a team that's supposed to win. And I think even within Celtics fandom, there's still, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a social media thing that in comment sections that I wasn't exposed to back then, that I am exposed to now. That's making me see more doubt than there was. Maybe there was doubt back then, but it just feels like people aren't fully like cocky about this team like they were in the past.
Here's what you want. I mean, the Celtics have they have a real good shot here. I think OKC is I think Cleveland's great. I'm not going to be surprised if anybody wins, if any of those three teams win. And I think there are specific matchups. The only thing that concerns me for OKC, the only little morsel I have, is the Clippers beating Denver. The Clippers series in the second round could be interesting. But, because Kawhi, you didn't have a team. The Clippers all year didn't have Kawhi and Harden and Zubac's has been amazing all year. He's a third team all NBA guy. It's close. There's a lot of those guys, but I think that could be really interesting. The biggest thing that's being unsaid now, and Max refused to say it out loud. I tried to goad him into it and he wouldn't say it. If Cleveland, they've been the best team in the East all year. If Cleveland doesn't go to the NBA Finals, which Eastern team, John, is the most likely one to go? It's obviously the Celtics, right?
Yes.
In the Western Conference, if the Thunder don't make it.
Oh. I was having this conversation with a bunch of people at dinner before a game. Like,
this could happen. I don't think it's going to, but my God, in this unprecedented year of nostalgia with the documentary going on, it's not crazy. Yeah. And there are similarities to 08 when obviously Luka is not Pau Gasol, but remember in 08, the Lakers were not a contender when that season started. You know who the team was that year? It was Utah. That Darren Williams Boozer team in Utah, they were really, really good. They had great games against the Celtics that year. The Lakers were not considered a contender for the Western Conference title at the start of the year, but then they got Gasol, had the great second half, and then all of a sudden, there we were, with two Celtic Laker finals in 3 years. And I'm I'm off. Okay, when I see OKC beaten 4 times, I'll believe it.
Yeah.
But this is not.
It's not out of the question.
Not
It's
crazy.
not out of the question. Just give me your biggest takeaway. Just your biggest takeaway from this season.
Professionalism. Focus on the task. Unfazed by, Porzingis and Jaylen Brown are out tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
No big deal. The year that Tatum had was spectacular because if I close my eyes, if you're driving, don't do that, but you close your eyes, you can picture Tatum. How many third quarters was Tatum out there with Shireman, Drew Peterson, Kada, and it's all part of this MVP count. Listen, this is the SGA Jokic year. I'm no longer. It's funny. A month ago, I thought Tatum was a solid third Eastern Conference MVP, and clearly that's Giannis now. A month ago, I was convinced that SGA was going to win and win big. I'm not sure anymore. Yeah. I'm not sure anymore that these games Jokic has had late, but I hope people appreciate the year that Tatum had because you are witnessing a generational Celtic who has a great chance to be, he's climbing this list to do it in Madison Square Garden. That was one of my favorite moments because, listen, every game I do in that, I grew up in that building. People know that. That's a cathedral to me. And if Jayson Tatum go into the top 10 in Celtics history with a 40-point night at Madison Square Garden, and that people ask me why I made the choice I made, is to do the games that matter. Those are the games that matter, those Saturday night ABC games and the playoff games. But that was a signature moment in this year that Tatum had, which was one of the greatest Celtics of all time at the height of his powers. And if you don't think he is, take a step back and realize you are in the middle of watching Bird and Havlicek and the Jays are these guys for the era. And Tatum's still doing this at a pretty impossible young age. And I think the documentary about them in 20 years, which is my primary takeaway about this year and these last couple of years, is Jaylen and Jayson as men, as young men. And it blows my mind at 22 and 23 and 24, the lives they had off the court. I love the duality of Jaylen's life off the court and Jayson's life off the court. I love how there's that little bit of, I think they have sort of an envy of the other a little bit. Mm-hmm. When Jaylen sees Jayson with the kids and with Deuce and whatever. And Jayson, I think if time allowed, he'd be a little bit more socially active the way that Jaylen, it's a fascinating, it's as feel good a combination as this team has ever had. And this team has had some over the years. And it's funny, Celtic City's putting a light on the fact that it wasn't always, Bird and McHale weren't best friends. They weren't whatever. Robert Parrish obviously didn't help Lowry in the fight. That was the big takeaway from the 5th episode. There was always issues. There's a great soundbite from Kuzi about he wished he had felt Bill Russell's pain more. Yeah, when they were teammates. And I think to watch these guys together again. The older you get, when I came in the league, half the players were older than me. Now you get older and you become a father yourself, and you just have a great appreciation for them doing this at the highest level, carrying on this tradition of that we're getting to sort of enjoy every Monday night, with the documentary, and that in real time, that this season, I'm big on appreciating. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns goes berserk in the second round and scores 40 in every game. Stuff it's not going to happen. But what if it did?
What if it did?
Then this season, people are going to spit on it. And so right now, take this 82 game body of work and enjoy every night the way older fans wished they had appreciated the 80s more, when the Celtics were winning every night at Boston Garden and you got to watch, see Larry play every night. Be in this moment. Look at these other teams in the league and say, there but for the grace of Prokhorov.
Thanks to Sean Grande. Really appreciate him hopping on. Again, full podcast, full bonus content with an hour-long conversation. That's going to be here on YouTube. I'll post that on Tuesday. So this podcast will be there for you. When you drive home, you want to put it on, just put the YouTube on and play it through your car's Bluetooth speaker. It's going to be the full extended conversation. So go check that out there. I really do appreciate you being here on a regular basis. You're everydayers. I love the fact that you're here with me every Monday through Friday. Thank you so much. Get into the comment section here. Let me know what you're thinking of the Celtics, what you're thinking about what we said. And I would love to hear your or see your takes. And I would love to see you share the podcast and tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.